Hello, so I'm doing a review of Terror at Tenkiller here, which is a 1986 shot-on-video style slasher film directed by Ken Meyer. It runs about 87 minutes in length. This obviously is the VHS version of the film. I don't think I've actually shown any VHS tapes on this channel before, but I do have a small collection of them. It is also available though on DVD, though it's quite hard to find in any format really. I think the DVD, there's a Region 1 version which is a double pack with The Last Slumber Party, quite hard to come by. There's also a European standalone DVD, I think, maybe from Germany. But whenever I see it on eBay, it always seems to be from Scandinavian sellers for some reason, but I think it's got German text on the back. This VHS here, there might be an ex-rental possibly, it's a UK one. That's the back. You probably can't see it on my camera, but I can confirm that on this particular version the writing here is in English. And that's the spine of it if you're interested. So yeah, Terror at Tenkiller VHS copy here. So with that said, we're going to get into the story of this one now. It's pretty bare bones, there's not a whole lot going on, but for what it's worth, here it is. The plot follows two young women. I'd say they're perhaps around about college age, sort of late teens, and they're called Janna and Leslie. It's summertime, and as she annually seems to do at this time of year, Janna is preparing to visit Lake Tenkiller, where she has a summer job working as a waitress. Leslie, meanwhile, is having problems with a long-term boyfriend who has recently begun to turn possessive and violent. And with the plan to pull her friend away from this hostility and the drama of it all, Janna persuades Leslie to join her at the summer for a kind of few weeks or months. I'm not sure how long they're supposed to be staying there, but she persuades her friend to join her anyway at this lake. But as it turns out, Leslie is unwittingly walking into an even more toxic situation, as it transpires that there is actually a serial killer at large within the area of the lake, and of course he sets his sights on the two girls. So that's the story of it then. I'm going to go now into what I thought were the good points about this one, and I would say that the two leads of Janna and Leslie, who have to carry the film on their shoulders for much of the running time, as there's very few other significant characters. It's got a very small cast. So they kind of have to carry the lion's share of the work on their shoulders for much of the time, and I think they do a pretty good job, to be fair to them. They both came across as quite likeable, charming enough for this kind of thing. And as far as low-budget slashers go, I'd say that the acting from the pair was pretty credible. You know, nothing special, but they did a pretty decent job. You'll certainly see a lot worse when it comes to acting from the lead characters. So next good point then is that I like the location of the lake and the beach house type setting in which the girls were staying. I'm not sure if a cabin is the right word, it's a bit more ritzy than that, but it's kind of like a cross between a cabin and a beach house, we'll just say that. I'm not exactly sure what you would call it, but in any case the backdrop had a vintage kind of Friday the 13th vibe to it, which I liked. Also a nice small town feel was established in the odd few other locations that were used, like there was a kind of this boat rental harbour kind of thing that was briefly seen. And also a diner where one of the girls works. So they did have a couple of other sort of locations where they shot footage, but for the most part it was kind of restricted to the lake and the cabin area. But on those odd few occasions where we did see some other kind of settings, they did a nice job of putting up a small town vibe. So it certainly left me wanting to see more of the surrounding town. But sadly, as it was, we just saw these 2 or 3 other locations. So the final good point then is that the murders were few and far between. It was a little bit more gore than I was expecting. I kind of went into it with pretty low expectations in this area. I kind of heard that it was really tame and that kind of thing, so I wasn't expecting a lot of violence. But by no means is it violent. It's like super violent, but it was a little bit more graphic with the murders than I thought it was going to be. So I was a little bit kind of pleasantly surprised in that area. Perhaps just because I was going in with such low expectations. But yeah, it was a little bit more bloody than I thought it would be. A little bit more blood than I anticipated. Not gallons of it by any stretch, but a little bit more than I thought, so I was kind of pleasantly surprised. But I guess it does depend on what you kind of expect going in. Okay then, moving on to what I thought were the bad points, and like I briefly mentioned before, I touched on this, the cast of characters is really small. It's about 7 or 8 people, I would say, and one of these gets kind of killed off really early, so it's really just down to like 7 or 6 or something like that. So it definitely feels like it's kind of hampered in this area by such a small cast, and it definitely feels like it needs more characters to help bolster it and to liven things up when it comes to the script. Just for that there's just not enough happens for large periods. It can be a little bit, not boring, but it's like this needs more excitement going on with the script, a bit more effort made with the script. So maybe a bit more kind of, it's kind of missing that kind of like banter between characters that you normally get in these kind of things. There's only like, oftentimes it's just the two girls kind of conversing amongst themselves, so it feels like it needs more kind of characters to kind of get involved with the conversation. I think if they had added like 2 or 3 more people it would have helped, but I guess it's just all down to the budget. Next bad point is that the killer, and this is actually quite a big bad point, is that the killer is very bland looking. And not only is there no mask or costume, but it's also not one of those whodunit style slashers. So you can't, in this one you can't know from the beginning who the killer is. So it doesn't even have that kind of, oh, who could it be kind of aspect to it. There's no like mystery, so it doesn't even have that going for it. Definitely not my favourite direction for these films to go in. And one further problem is that towards the end, when the whole thing gets resolved, we don't even kind of find out any kind of backstory to the killer as to why he's doing what he's doing. There's no motivations that are properly explained or revealed, so it's kind of falls flat there as well. Kind of a bit of an anticlimactic ending. No effort made to explain the guy's actions, so it just feels a bit underwhelming, a bit of a letdown, a bit of a damp squib type ending. So with that said, then I'm going to go into my verdict now, and would I recommend it? And I would say probably yes if you've not seen it. I mean, it's kind of commonly thought of as being one of the worst of the 80s slasher films, but I think it may be slightly better than that. It wasn't quite as bad as I was thinking it was going to be. I'd read a lot of bad things going in, but I actually thought it was decent, you know, not great by any stretch, but not too bad. The small cast certainly don't help things, and the killer not being fleshed out enough and being really bland looking do hurt it certainly, but if you can get past these limitations though, then I think it's watchable enough, and the 2 lead characters are quite good. You can root for them, and there's a nice nostalgic Friday the 13th kind of vibe to it with the setting of the lake and the cabin kind of area, so, or beach house if you want to call it that. So overall then it wasn't as bad as I thought. It was actually okay, and I'm going to rate it a 5 out of 10. So there we go, that's my overall verdict, half marks, 5 out of 10. And I'll put a body count or kill count if you prefer in the description, so check that out. Okay then, thanks for watching and goodbye.